I would think so. I mean, I admit I have researched South Carolina law up until this point. And after I'm done here, I'm going to go research the Victims' Rights Acts in South Carolina. I'll be able to give a much more articulated answer. But I would assume that you have to let Buster testify. And once you let that door open, you gotta let other people as well. Because if Buster says he wants to testify, you're not gonna say, well, Buster, what are you gonna say? Who are you gonna support? And then based on his answer, say, yes, I will, or yes, I won't. So if you open the door to Buster and he starts supporting his father, I would assume that you would let others go. Now, Maggie Murdaugh was not always a Murdaugh. That is her married name. I would assume that her family, prior to being married, or that side of her family is going to testify and talk about how they lost a member of their family that married into the Murdaughs. I would expect a lot of those people to testify in that case for the victim impact statements.
You know what, Brian? I wish we had the YouTube so we could answer questions, but we really don't need to, because I got a whole line of producers. I got Christina, our producer, telling us about our other producer, Elizabeth. They're asking some killer questions, really good. And yes, we have talked about 404 evidence, but here's the twist. And here's what the question. If the verdict would have been the same had 404 evidence not been allowed in, or would there have been a longer... Okay, guys, we have the press conference, so we'll get to that question afterwards. Let's go to it.
God bless you. God bless you.
Y'all might have to come around to the side. Y'all be patient. There's a lot of us coming out. How are we on the mic check? Thumbs up. Thank you. We got our team out here. Wow. What a great day for the people of South Carolina. I want to thank every one of you for being here tonight. There's a lot of emotion here tonight at this courthouse. A lot of a year and a half, nearly 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears, it feels like. A lot of hard work from so many people. So if you will just bear with me, there's a couple of, not a couple, there's a lot of people I have to thank. But first, those of you who don't know, I'm Alan Wilson. I'm South Carolina's Attorney General, and I got the best staff of any Attorney General in the United States of America. I want to start by thanking our prosecution team. I want to tell you, I've been here for nearly 6 weeks with this team, living in a hotel, and it felt almost like being in a dorm environment in college. Late nights, cramming, studying, little sleep, away from our families, getting up early, getting here to the courthouse, working long hours, getting on each other's nerves at times. But it was all worth it. It was all worth it because we got to bring justice and be a voice for Maggie and Paul Murdaugh and bring justice for the people of South Carolina. I'd like to start real briefly by thanking our team. First, excuse me, I need to put my glasses on. Our chief prosecutor, I tell you, I appointed Creighton Waters to be the chief prosecutor of this case nearly a year and a half ago. And I want to say I'm pretty brilliant because I picked the right guy. And I want to say thank you to Creighton Waters. Creighton, you did a fantastic job. I don't think there's another attorney in the state of South Carolina that could have led this Herculean effort. But Creighton will be the first to tell you he didn't do it alone because he had a team of people. I want to first thank Don Zelinka, who is actually Creighton's boss. He is the Deputy Attorney General, been in the Attorney General's office for over 40 years, sitting here to my immediate left. Don Zelinka, thank you so much. John Metters, many of you got to see him do the closing argument today. John, thank you. You've been a phenomenal add to our team. I'm going to go quickly through the names, but as I read the names, please raise your hand. You know Creighton, you saw Don, and you see John. David Fernandez, John Conrad, Johnny James, Savannah Gowd, Ozzie Toledo,
Yes.
Shane Aceto,
Yes.
Carly Jewell,
Yes.
Carson Burney,
Yes.
Danielle Colon,
Yes.
and our victims advocate, Tricia Allen.
Yes.
I also want to say thank you to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. Mark Keel assigned some amazing men and women. And when I say it was an agency-wide effort on behalf of SLED, I can't underscore that part enough. Every time I called Chief Keel, every time I reached out to the lead agents, every time Creighton was asking me, hey, General, we need something from SLED, we would reach out to SLED, and they were there. They busted their butts. I can't begin to list every agent, and some can't be listed for obvious reasons. Some are standing up here tonight. I told them I wasn't going to mention their names, but we would not be here if it wasn't for SLED. And I want to thank Mark Keel and his team and all of the men and women across the entire state law enforcement division for what they did to make tonight a possibility. Amen. I also want to thank the FBI and the Secret Service, our federal partners. We had to utilize many of their assets and resources. We couldn't do all the things that we did without our federal partners. We had a lot of local partners. We had the Colleton County Sheriff's Department, Buddy Hill, Sheriff Hill and his team, providing the security. They did a phenomenal job, and they were there. They were the first responders the night on June 7, 2021, when Maggie and Paul were butchered brutally. They were the first responders, and they were the first ones to be there. The Charleston County Sheriff's Office, the Orangeburg County Sheriff's Office were instrumental in supporting our investigative efforts. You all know Kenny Kinsey, our chief crime scene expert, was with the Orangeburg Sheriff's Office. I also want to thank the city of Walterboro. I think the mayor is here somewhere, and the police department. They provided security. Thank you. This whole community has embraced our entire team, and I cannot thank you enough. We've all been away from our families, 2 hours away from our families for the past 2 months, and it's this community that made us. We would walk into restaurants and people would come up and thank us. You know, you don't have any idea how good that makes people feel when they're under an incredible amount of stress, an incredible amount of scrutiny, and this community really embraced us. I want to thank the Colleton County Clerk of Court, Becky Hill, and her entire team and their staff. I don't know. I call her Becky Booth. That's her nickname. But Madam Clerk, wherever you are tonight. I'm sorry. That's my pet name for her. But I want to thank you, Madam Clerk, for you, the entire team, the bailiffs, the court security, the staff here. There was no role that was too small that they weren't willing to do for us. The security team here, it was a Herculean effort by everybody, and I can't thank enough people. I don't know if I mentioned the bailiffs, but I want to thank them. And there's another group of people who you don't know who they are, but that's the jurors. And not just the jurors, but the alternates, the ones who didn't even get to serve to the very end, but people who were taken away from their families. I want to thank the families of our jurors who sat here every single day for what seemed like long amounts of tedious, monotonous information and evidence. Sometimes people didn't know what it meant. They didn't understand it. And they had to sit there and process it and hear it over and over and over again. And I want to thank these nameless jurors whose identities have been protected. They may make their identities available to all of you at some point, but they sat there and they delivered justice tonight, and I want to thank them for their role in this process. Amen. You know, Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government except for every other kind. I kind of want to adopt that and say we may have the worst criminal justice system in the world, but it's better than every other kind that there is. And our criminal justice system worked tonight. It gave a voice to Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, who were brutally mowed down and murdered on the night of June 7th, 2021 by someone that they loved and someone that they trusted. And they couldn't be here to testify for themselves tonight. Their testimony came through the evidence and the information that was gathered by the men and women of the agencies I've just mentioned. It came from the testimony of the agents and the investigators and the attorneys and the folks in our staff who were able to get it to the court record. And so I want to say tonight, their voice was heard tonight and justice was brought for them. We can't bring them back, but we can bring them justice. Amen. Amen. I started off my remarks by saying that it is a good day in South Carolina.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Today's verdict proves that no one, no matter who you are in society, is above the law.
Amen. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord.
A lot of people doubted that this process would work, and hopefully, for those who did doubt the process, hopefully we have instilled and put a little bit of faith back into you and your lives as you view this process as it unfolds. I am proud of this team. I'm proud of the men and women standing behind me tonight, and there's been a lot of emotion. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I saw firsthand for the last 5 or 6 weeks the countless nights where you were up beyond midnight and you were getting up before dawn, not eating. I was watching Nancy Grace the other night and I heard her call Creighton pale and gaunt because Creighton wasn't eating and sleeping. He really wasn't, folks. I'm serious. You know, we would have to bring in kind bars and things to eat during breaks. But Creighton, Herculean effort, my friend. And I am truly honored to have you on our team. Thank you for being a great leader and a great chief prosecutor. And I would like to invite you to come up here and make some remarks for the folks here tonight.
Thanks, everybody. And I want to start by thanking this guy who's given me and all these folks behind us opportunities to do justice, which is what we want to do with our careers. It is very tough and demanding, but it's rewarding for moments like these. The general stole a lot of my lines, but I also want to thank the jurors for their long and arduous service. And we had no doubt that if we had a chance to present our case in a court of law, that they would see through the one last con that Alex Murdaugh was trying to pull. And they did, and we're so grateful for that. I get to lead the state grand jury section in the Attorney General's office. This particular case is not a state grand jury case. There are other indictments that are state grand jury. But the one thing about that is that I have an amazing team. And I want to be clear, this was a team effort. Y'all saw all of these folks behind me doing amazing work. And I can't be prouder of a team in my life. We called this our Super Bowl. And not because of the media attention, but just because of the effort that we knew that we would have to put into this. And we didn't really get to watch much of the Super Bowl that went on because when we arrived, I think it was winter and it feels like spring now. But every single member of this team, every single member of the state grand jury staff, what we do well is work together as a team in complex investigations. And who we work with is my partners at SLED. And I can't thank them enough as well because we're used to working on these complex cases and working together. And I'm not leaving out Sheriff Hill and the Colleton County Sheriff's Office and our federal partners in Orangeburg and Charleston Sheriff's Office and all the other agencies that have worked on this case. I also want to thank Ms. Becky, if she's still up there, because she's been amazing. The clerk staff has been amazing. The court staff has been amazing. The bailiffs have been amazing. And again, I also want to thank this community who really has embraced us and has been so great to us and made us able to survive this process that has been long and arduous. And I haven't been sleeping. I hadn't been. And I have been eating more than Kind bars every now and then. But, and I'm sure that's a nice plug for Kind. But anyway, it really has been a great process. We will have sentencing tomorrow. Obviously, we're not going to comment on sentencing because that's still pending. But justice was done today. It doesn't matter who your family is. It doesn't matter how much money you have or people think you have. It doesn't matter what you think, how prominent you are. If you do wrong, if you break the law, if you murder, then justice will be done in South Carolina. And I think South Carolina has shown to the nation and the world how a process can work and work well. Amen. Thank y'all.
And also, I want to thank Creighton. I told Creighton, I said, Creighton, I'm going to come down and I'm going to be just a staff attorney. I know I'm your boss. I'm your boss's boss's boss. But I said I'm going to come down and I'm going to help. And I said I'm going to follow instruction. And I hope I was true to my word. This past weekend, I was saying, what can I do to help? I said I'm willing to take a witness if it'll help. He said, actually, it would. So he let an old prosecutor dust off his cleats and get back in the game and to help the team out. And
I got to be the boss of the boss for a while.
Yeah, don't get used to it.
I'm not used to it.
No, but in all seriousness, I'm proud of the decisions that I made in putting the people behind me and to the left and right of me in charge of this case, and I was honored to be part of this team. Just another member, just another worker bee in the trenches trying to bring justice to the people of this state and to bring justice to the people who couldn't be here tonight because they were brutally murdered by someone they trusted. Now, with that being said, I know a lot of people want to talk to us. A lot of people want to talk to some of the attorneys and the support staff and the agents, investigators here tonight. Some of you want to talk to me and others. We're going to make ourselves available to you. But like Mr. Waters just said, tomorrow there's a sentencing hearing, and we don't want to get out in front of our skis. And plus, I'm starting to feel the rain come down. But I promise you, we're going to make ourselves available to talk to members of the media, to talk to all of you out there that have questions. We'll answer any questions that we ethically can. We hope you'll continue to be patient with us as we finish this process tomorrow. Again, we're going to go back and get a good night sleep tonight. But again, thank you. I'm going to also, one last group that we didn't thank, the media. You all, I know a lot of people in this polarizing world we live in, a lot of people take shots at the media, but the media was incredibly respectful. You were so good, not just to us, but listen, to the families of the victims, okay? I know this is an awkward situation, but you protected the identities of people, and you protected the process, and I want to thank you for your part in this and telling the stories, educating the public on what's going on out there. So now I'm going to stop speaking as an attorney general, and I'm going to close as a father and as a husband to say that when you go home tonight, hug your loved ones, hug your spouse, hug your children, because this case reminds us of anything that you can't take for granted that people in your family are always going to be there. And right now, when I get home tomorrow, I'm going to hug mine, and I hope you hug yours. But thank you again. Thank you for your prayers.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your prayers. You came and prayed for me. I see a lot of people come up and say we're praying for you. We appreciate your prayers. Thank you all so much. And this is going to conclude this press conference. We look forward to talking to all of you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna let you go right here. I just want to thank you and your staff. Y'all just did a good job. God bless you. Thank y'all very much. Thank y'all. And thank the media.
All right, Brian Buckmeyer, there you are. Proud prosecutors brought me back to the day, Brian, when you have those press conferences. I was saying to you when it started, ladies and gentlemen, please, don't think that this was not a completely orchestrated thing, and I don't mean that in a negative way. But it is very, very important. As you can see, Brian, a lot of law enforcement agencies are involved. A lot of people participate. Some people think that the government has too much resources and things, and defendants don't. But you have to be very, very careful in this environment to make sure you thank all the various people that participated, and it can be daunting because there are so many people. The Attorney General, I think, did a very good job. I was very impressed with the comment he made, and I'd like to agree with it, among other comments. But he said, I think it was the AG or the prosecutor, that they were proud of how they did it and how it showed the rest of the world. I think they ran a really good trial. I think it was sophisticated. I think the lawyering was great on both sides. I thought they did a great job, but I think that they were proud of that, Brian. I think that they wanted the world to see that we're not, kind of reminding me of my cousin Vinny. We have ever a sophisticated system of justice as you do in New York. What do you think?
Yeah. So I'll say this. I'm a public defender. I'm defense orientated. If you've heard my commentary, I am always critical of the prosecution because my belief is that a strong defense makes sure that the prosecution gets it right. I will continue to be critical of all prosecutions, probably because it's fun, but it's also, if I'm critical and they get it right, then I know they got the right person. And I think in this situation, our criticism of the prosecution poked holes, saw where they were weak, but saw where they were strong. And I think that they did get it right. And I think that this is their opportunity to get up there and say, thank you to everyone. Thank you to the people who participated. Thank you to law enforcement. They said thank you to media. I think that includes me and you, so I'll take that as well. But I think they did a great job here. I think there's obviously shortcomings that I highlighted throughout the coverage of this, throughout the entirety of the show and in the past. But overall, I think that justice was served here. I think there are still some questions that I may have asked, but I don't think there was any reasonable doubt here. I think at the end of the day, the guilty verdict makes sense. But who cares what I think? The jury is the one who decided, and that's what they thought was correct.
Justice was done today down here in South Carolina, and it was the defendant's one last con, as was indicated to us. Well, you guys know, Brian, that we have boots on the ground out there, including Gigi McKelvey, who was actually there when the verdict was read. And while we're trying to get her up, because we were Law and Crime Network, Gigi, everybody was just really, really there, making sure that we knew on the cutting edge when this was going to happen, including Anjanette. So let's go live and take a look at the verdict, and we'll come back on the other end, hopefully with Gigi.
The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. Okay. Guilty verdict. Signed by the forelady, 3-2-23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00593, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, the July term of 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. Verdict, guilty. Signed by the forelady. Date 3/2/23.
Okay, I tell you, I saw a look on that face, a little wobbly there in my mind, ashen, and I personally thought he was going to go down. But, you know, what do I know? Gigi McKelvey is our correspondent out there for the Law and Crime Network, having done a great job with Anjanette. Gigi, you were there. What was the tension like? I felt like it was cut through a knife over here all the way in studio in New York. Talk to me about it. And am I right? Was he getting wobbly? He looked shaky up there.
Yeah, and I have to say, just as we were waiting on family to get there and for everybody to get seated, he looked very jerky from behind. You could just tell he was very nervous. There was a FaceTime there at the defense table. I don't know with who. We heard it. We couldn't see specifically who it was. John Marvin was not in attendance. It was his sister, Lynn, her husband, Buster, and his girlfriend. It was just so tense. Lots of nerves in that family. They just looked very uneasy. Buster very stoic. And then when it was read that he was guilty on all counts, when they cuffed him and he turned around, Alec got very, very emotional, red-faced, teary-eyed, looked directly at Buster and said, "It's okay, I love you." And Buster looked down and was fighting back tears. It was very emotional in there, very tense. The family, Buster was rubbing his girlfriend's shoulder at times. She was kind of looking up at him, especially after that guilty verdict every now and then. Just very tense in that courtroom. We kind of thought it was going to be a verdict. We didn't know for sure. But there was so much more security than normal in there. There were officers posted behind the family all along every door, which we knew was different. So it became clear really quickly we were here for a verdict.
Yeah, Gigi, I mean, listen, something that as Meyer and myself were waiting here to see if a verdict came, we were absolutely convinced as trial lawyers that this was going to be either maybe a question or more likely, can we go home? But this verdict came out really fast, and when we heard it was a verdict, because you guys were the first ones to be reporting that out, we were like, wow, somebody lost big time, and we suspected it was the defendant. Were you guys shocked down there too, how fast this went?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, they've sat here for 6 weeks. I didn't think that they would take a week or even tomorrow. So a lot of us down here really thought maybe by the end of the day today we would have a verdict. We just kind of had a feeling. The jury's been looking really tired this past week, and it's been a long marathon, and I think they were just ready. They've heard it. I don't think there was really much to discuss unless you had somebody that was holding out. But they did do some work in there. They requested the TV monitor to watch some videos. So I think maybe they just took a moment to look over something, maybe one or more questioned. But man, that was a quick verdict. And as soon as when the officer came in and told us there will be no reaction when the verdict is read, that was the first time we knew for sure it was a verdict. And then we all kind of looked. And at the same time, he made very clear if there was any reaction from the public, we would be escorted out really quickly. Yeah,
you know, I think this judge handled this courtroom extremely well, very professionally. The lawyers were very professional. We could argue about little things here and there. Everybody could talk about something at trial. I thought this was a really fair fight, and it was a very, very sophisticated presentation. The judge kept great control of the courtroom. But let me ask you, when you're there and that verdict is coming out, did you tend to see any more or less of a reaction from one side or the other? In other words, did you see defense attorneys that were nervous?
Everybody looked nervous. I have to say the SLED agents, every one of them looked like they had been in the sun for 8 solid hours. Red-faced, pacing a little bit, just kind of nervous chatter. and you could hear a pin drop when that verdict was read. So I think that there were nerves on all sides. You could just see it. It was very palpable. You could almost cut it with a knife in there.
Okay, and we have a minute left, but when actually the verdict was read, were there any eventual sighs of relaxation or outbursts or anybody saying anything shortly after that?
Not a word, not a sound. It was very quiet. I think that even though most people expected this verdict, just to hear guilty after 6 long weeks at a trial, which was supposed to be 3 weeks, it's kind of like, wow, we're here and it's over. And so now we know sentencing is tomorrow morning at 9:30, which that got a few sighs out of the courtroom. But otherwise, when that verdict was read, no, you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah, I got to tell you something that surprised me, GG's. You got the verdict tomorrow. They're going to be going right into the sentencing. You have done an amazing job, the whole team down there. You guys came out in front of this right from the beginning, got us ready to be able to do this cover. So thank you, GG. And that is going to be up for us right now. We're going to take a quick commercial, come back on the other end, and have more of this fascinating verdict. Please stay with us.